we have this potential to use this leg to drive up out of the ground, and that's how we're going to actually facilitate a lot of the opening. Okay, how we push back into the ground is going to help you drive this lead hip out of the way, away from that golf ball.
So let's look at this follow through here. Chest tall, hips forward, my glutes are tucked, I'm feeling very strong and powerful, and the majority of my weight and pressure here is on the outstep of the front foot.
Yes.
And we see a lot of amateur golfers generally with the perception that through the golf ball they need to stay down because that's going to help them compress, and they'll finish in the opposite. Chest down, hips back, arms bunched, right? So what I want you to do, Riggs, is kind of talk us through here the importance of how this here,
yes,
even though we've hit the golf ball, right, why it is important to get into this position here.
It's essential that golfers understand that good players will rotate and extend through the hitting area. Okay, good players are not doing anything to try and stay in flexion.
Yeah.
Okay, and for the average player, that if they've seen their videos, if they see that chicken wing going through, that breakdown in arm structure, that's exactly what they're doing, is that they're staying in a state of bend or flexion. They're effectively staying down too much. And that's just typically getting the concept wrong. Is as they've learned golf and potentially received feedback from friends, they've naturally topped a few shots, and they've probably been told with every top shot, you lifted your head.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the way that I like to blend this together for most players is, in no other sport, post-impact, would you stay down for this long period of time? A tennis ball coming towards you, if you're going to hit it, you don't go
exactly
like that, right? You move into position.
Yes.
So let's say we're a player and we film our golf swings, and through the golf ball, even in the attempt to get compression, we hear this a lot as well. Players might top the ball or hit it poorly, then they're on the range, and through reaction to the previous 60 shots that they've hit, they go stay down, stay down, stay down. All of a sudden they can see this nice divot, they can get the ball, but then they go on the golf course and they can't recreate it.
Yeah.
It's purely for the fact that they're trying to achieve an outcome based around a ball. The ball is not our focus, right? Correct. We are swinging towards a target, moving that club through the positions as a natural effect of the swing, rather than just trying to force something to happen. Because as soon as this impact is complete here, our body, through that moment, should already be extending and moving up into this powerful finish, the same as you would in any other sport, to utilize the ground and get the most out of your potential for power.
Yeah, exactly. I like players to think of that golf ball just like a speed bump. They're going to cruise right through it. So knowing where they need to be in the finish is important. Knowing that they need to be fully rotated, fully extended, understanding what extension is, and it is the opposite of flexion. You know, flexion is going to be the state of bending over, coming closer to the ground. Our objective through the golf ball is to do exactly the opposite of that. As though we were trying to jump as high as possible, we need to engage the same muscles to achieve that pattern. Now, we have this expectation to create this strike, and if we do this movement correctly, we will still allow the golf club to make contact with the golf ball and following the ground.
And I would say that a lot of players would struggle to get their head around this, because they go, well, if I'm topping it, but then in the same sense, I'm trying to get my body finishing tall and extended, isn't that going to lift the bottom of my swing even more? But then this is where the education of low point and elements such as body position and hinge comes into effect.
Yes.
So why don't we talk about, and we'll map out the whole golf swing so they get an understanding of exactly the movement of the chest, the turn, tilt, and rotation, specifically going from a front bend to the top of swing, and then back down into impact, and then the follow through, right? So I think a great way to demonstrate this is put the golf club across my chest like this, take the arms out of it. So we're just talking about the front bend or the flexion of the body down towards the ground. This is the starting position of the golf swing. Now, talk us through the rest of the motion.
So from this address, from this forward bend that we're in, we need to rotate and extend as we work into the backswing. So that rotation is the turn that typically people understand.
Yeah.
The extension part is likely a little bit more unique.
Correct.
Now, as you turn and you get that left shoulder to turn underneath your chin, I want that right shoulder to feel like it's turning up to the sky. Okay, almost the sensation of turning the buttons on your shirt away from the golf ball. Okay, so go through that pattern again. So starting in the state of front bend, we're going to feel like we can turn the buttons up to the sky, great extension feeling. And in going through this pattern, we have gone from the state of forward bend to the state of left bend.
And I love this, right? Because if I just do this, well, there was no front bend over here, was it? That's all I did was just take out my left bend. So the left bend is this motion here, guys. If I'm setting up and then I go into this left bend here and then rotate like that, well, that's the top of the backswing, isn't it? There was no element of bending down with our front bend into this position here. As my head stays relatively stable and I get my shoulders working in a circle, we can see that that is naturally replaced. There is no such thing for a very proficient ball striker of keeping the chest down, because we need this tilt and extension of our body to maintain a centered pivot.
Correct.
Great. So let's say we're in this position, we feel like the back of the right shoulder gets high for the right hander, left shoulder works under, body feels really tall. What happens next?
Okay, the next piece is that we are going to effectively fall into our left foot. And as this happens, we are going to slowly get back to that state of front bend. Okay, similar to where we were at address, we've just relocated ourselves more to the left.
Very good, very good. So address position, right shoulder goes back, lead shoulder goes under, feeling chest to the sky, falling back down into this lead foot. Notice, guys, I'm not unwinding at all. Falling down as we do so, the body gets back into this front bend. I feel a lot of pressure underneath my front foot, Riggs.
Fantastic.
A lot. So that just means that's going to help me with what throughout the swing?
Extension.
Yeah.
Okay, if we can deliver that force into the ground through that foot by falling into it, we have this potential to use this leg to drive up out of the ground, and that's how we're going to actually facilitate a lot of the opening. Okay, how we push back into the ground is going to help you drive this lead hip out of the way, away from that golf ball.
Yeah, and one last key I would say here, let's say we chuck the golf club back in the hands, is this falling back into the lead side helps the low point in the bottom of the golf swing get forward, right? So the topping of the golf ball can occur because your body is too far behind and the club rises.
Yes.
Whereas if I am right shoulder back behind, lead shoulder under, falling down in front, now all of a sudden I'm in a great spot from there with all this pressure loaded up to naturally get a descending blow on the golf ball without focusing on it. And because I've applied so much pressure into the ground at that moment of time, I can feel all this force wanting to get myself into this position here.
Yes.
So talk about that last little section as we've fallen down into impact, and then the sensation and the movement from here.
Well, let's just say that we get the concept wrong. Let's just say that we're trying to stay down.
Yeah.
If we stay in this state of flexion through the impact zone, what we're going to see by forcing the chest to stay down is we force ourselves to bend the arms, to break the arm structure. Because if we didn't, if we extended our arms while staying down, we'd hit the ground 1.5 feet before the golf ball.
Yeah.
So there's a spatial need here. We need to create room to allow for the arms to extend. Good players through the golf ball are extending their arms through to the target. And to have the luxury of being able to do that, we've got to get the lower body to extend up and in.
Great. So getting the feeling, right shoulder back behind, left shoulder down, falling down into the lead, lots of pressure, and then movement pattern wise, would we say that lead hip goes up and around, pushing all the weight onto that outstep of the front foot?
That's fantastic. And you see naturally that motion of that lead hip has brought that trail hip through. We finish with hips square to target. And a key that I like players to be able to see here is that the belt buckle is closer to the target than the buttons on the shirt.
Yeah, which is, if we're using these reference points for the player that does try and stay down, they are buttons of the shirt forward, belt buckle back. Now, this head staying relatively centered through this section, you can see the belt moves forward, the upper body stays back. That is a counterbalance to getting into this big, tall, extended finish, but that also helps with your quality of strike.
And that's a great point too, because I do find that as players initially start to discover this feeling of moving forward, naturally they don't quite have the extension through the hips.
Yeah.
So by getting pressure moving forward, but by having the chest too far forward, they can't hold their balance.
Yeah.
They're outside of their base of support. Now their strike improves. Okay, they start getting a forward divot, they start creating compression, but for us to be able to flight the ball higher, for us to be able to balance the finish, we need that counterbalance and we need that extension to create that.
I think one of the best drills for this that players can work on at home is just starting with the end in mind. So from the address position, moving the sensation of their hips pushing down into the ground, forward and up, and the chest extending. Getting into this position, go, okay, where is my head? Where are my shirt buttons? Where is my belt buckle? Well, I can feel the pressure on the outstep of the front foot and my chest is tall. Now, adding in a little brushing of the ground where we're still being cognizant that we need to hit the ground in front. How does that look there?
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, from that face-on viewpoint, we can see that reverse C. So we've got good structure through that lead side. You can see where the pressure is. And I love the fact that you've got the hips being the closest piece to the target. So you've used the glutes. Again, a lot of the power, one of the biggest muscles in the body is the glutes. We want to use them to create power through the hitting area. And getting into that extended finish shows that we've done that.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, so I'm going to have a little chip down there. Now, once again, one last little comment I'll make about this. It's all about, through that big tall finish, is letting the arms move into position. We're not trying to force them by any means. This body is the engine and facilitates that movement that you see with the professional of getting them in to this orientation at the end of their swing. So I've got that feeling, finishing with the hips forward, the chest tall. I'll clip one down there. And through the ball, like, I feel super balanced. Low point was forward, nice little divot, and for a shot of that distance, felt great.
Nice, bro.
Cheers.
Love it.